All right, Thunderstrike is going to be the next legendary character. Going to be a lot of synergy with Blastaar. And in general, not everybody, but more people were satisfied with the performance of Quasar than Blastaar. I did see quite a few people unimpressed with Blastaar. Some people did like Blastaar, it just depended on who you talk to. But he's going to be complimentary to Blastaar, and he's going to work well at the end of the day when we get Annihilus as a full team with the legendary characters and Annihilus. So this is kind of exciting. Looks like he's going to be very powerful inside of Crucible. Now, what remains to be seen is that there are going to be situations where you can use Blastaar on one team and him on another team, but it looks like it's going to synergize well together. In the strike spot, they did mention that he would work well with Blastaar and, let's say, Phoenix Force. And then they also suggested, as we know, that there's going to be another member of Phoenix Force, because Phoenix Force is going to play out in the same way that Undying has, only the Crucible version of Undying. Passive on this guy is super interesting. Let's read the information. The Chapter 3 legend: Nihilus invasion is a threatening the existence of Nexus Earth and reality itself. Nick Fury is calling on the Asgardian ranks for Strike's next legend in the fight against Annihilus, Thunderstrike. Thunderstrike is the third of three essential legends you need to unlock to challenge Annihilus at the finale of Age of Annihilus. Through Chapter 3, you'll collect Thunderstrike character shards from the command center, just like we've been doing with Blastaar and also Quasar. Thunderstrike, once an ordinary architect named Eric Masterson, fake struck like lightning when he crossed paths with Thor himself. After proving his courage and nobility in battle, Eric was granted an enchanted mace called Thunderstrike, transforming him into a modern-day hero, imbued with Asgardian strength, endurance, and command over thunder and lightning. Wielding his mighty weapon, Eric took up the mantle of Thunderstrike, immortal with the heart of a god, protecting both Earth and the realms beyond. A cosmic crucible storm, Thunderstrike legendary power strikes with maximum force and cosmic crucible offense. He sustains his allies with support mainstays like heals, hellsteals, and barrier for specific characters via a charge mechanic that he prefers, that he powers up himself with his basic. Thunderstrike also forges support by blinding enemies with two abilities, applying ability block to heroes, and stealing ability energy from villains. A lot of people are thinking that this means that a curse will probably have to go from defense to offense because of the way the kit reads. Let's go a little bit further. Legendary duo with Blastaar. Thunderstrike doesn't usurp Blastaar's throne. He rules beside him and electrifies the kingdom. This Asgardian legend complements Blastaar in battle while also acting as a bomb burst, battery, and personal medic. Thunderstrike calls in Blastaar for assists on his special and ultimate abilities. Now, my understanding is that these assists are coded differently and the text works differently. So that, like, the anti-assist passives like Echo will not apply to this Thunderstrike Blastaar. We'll read more about that when we get there. Powering up Blastaar's bomb burst mechanic for earlier detonation. Thunderstrike also specifically distributes stolen health to Blastaar as well as barriers him with his charge mechanic. Together with key theory crafting, Thunderstrike and Blastaar can rule top Crucible defenses like accursed and tricky Illuminati combinations. Feast thine eyes on Thunderstrike's Kit of the Gods. All right, Hero Global Mystic Support Legendary. 126. All right, we're going to go to the passive because there's a lot there. Not simple. It's pretty crazy, actually. All right, his passive, and there's going to be Awakened passive, of course. It seems like that's how they're indirectly monetizing these free legendaries, is with Awakens, right? On turn, heal self for 20% of its character's max health. Cool. This character has charge, bury yourself, a Blastaar ally, and all Asgardian allies for 10% of this character's max health, and then lose one charge. Might work with Odin, right? When an enemy attacks his character or an ally, Attack the enemy for damage. On Crucible offense, steal 10% of this character's max health from the target and redistribute 200% of health stolen to self and a random Blastaar ally. This bypasses heal block. Okay. So that's a passive attack, if you will. On Crucible offense, since this character completes a turn, enemies cannot gain defense up and allies cannot gain offense down. Now, this is where it gets bonkers and changes pretty much the whole kit in my mind. It just says like right here. All right, so that's the same. That's the same. And aggregate says the same. On Crucible offense, steal. That's the same. On Crucible offense, until this character completes a turn, same. Enemies cannot gain defense up and allies cannot gain offense down. If Blastaar is an ally, until this character takes a turn, enemies cannot fill speed bar for themselves or enemies. Does not apply to speed bar gained through normal means. If Blastaar is an ally, enemies cannot have their speed or resistance increased except by positive effects. Yeah, this changes him entirely. It's almost like a different character with that awakened ability. It's entirely different. This is not the cherry on top that just makes it a little bit better. This is an entire extra scoop of ice cream, with whipped cream and a cherries, as opposed to just getting a single serving cup. This is not just a luxury passive on his awakened ability. That's bonkers better. Much, much, much better. His ultimate, Rolling Thunder, energy cost, apply blind to a support enemy, attack all enemies for 400% piercing, apply trauma and steal 10% health from all enemies and redistribute the health stolen to self and a Blastaar ally. This bypasses heal block. On Crucible offense, apply safeguard, defense up, and immunity, and a random Blastaar ally. Okay. Call a random Blastaar ally to assist. The attack is unavoidable. Yeah, and this is not inherently obvious to me, but maybe I interpreted the strike time video wrong, but they said that those, like, the forge anti-assist mechanic doesn't apply to this. All right, I think I heard that correctly, right? All right, what do we got here? What are they going to add here? We got a lot of extra stuff, like on Crucible offense. All right, before the attack, reduce the duration of all positive effects on all enemies by 2. It's not even the same. That is so much better than that. Primary target is available and steal up to 2 ability integers. So we had that before with like Star-Lord T'Challa from the primary target. If the primary target is a hero, apply ability block instead. Apply safeguard, defense up, immunity, self, and a random Blastaar ally. Call a random Blastaar ally to assist. Attack is also unavoidable. Yeah. This right here, reduce the duration of all positive effects on all enemies by 2. Changes everything. That is a entirely different effect, and again, not just the cherry on the top. That is an extra scoop of ice cream. All right, special energy cost 4/4. Attack primary adjacent targets for 300% damage. Apply blind to primary target. Clear 2 random negative effects from self and all allies. Heal self and all allies for 20% of this character's max health. On Crucible offense, apply blind to adjacent targets. Steal 20% health, primary adjacent targets, and redistribute the health stolen from self and a Blastaar ally. This bypasses heal block. Call a random Blastaar ally to assist. So you got to think also that this is going to greatly enhance Blastaar's ability to get those bomb bursts, right? Because when he gets to 5, his ultimate starts like just exploding the board. All right. Fantastic. And then we've got the basic attack, which has an awakened also. Attack primary adjacent targets and apply bleed. Ooh, on a basic, gain 1 charge. Great. Attack primary adjacent targets for damage, apply bleed, and then also gain charge. But the awakened ability, this is on Crucible offense, reduce the duration of regeneration on primary and adjacent targets by 2. That seems like a luxury. Okay, that does seem like a cherry on top. That seems like a luxury awakened ability. ISO 8 counterattack assist. Attack primary target for damage and bleed. Also gain charge. And then the same thing there. It just adds that. The charge is pretty important. I'm trying to think if I would want to do a striker on this guy because of the charge. On turn, if this character has charge, bury yourself, a Blastaar ally, and all Asgardian allies for 10% of this character's max health and then lose 1 charge. That's cool. I don't know how super important that is. I mean, it's not like a turn meter or an extra bomb burst like it is on Blastaar, but it's still useful. I mean, I guess there might be a way of justifying striker. It depends on the turn order of the team, I suppose. Let me know what you think about all this. I'm a little bit concerned about these awakened abilities. And I don't know if the policy over there has changed. But when they started doing these awakened abilities, the way it was presented to me was exactly the analogy I said towards the middle of the video. You might have thought it like a strange analogy, and I was kind of making a little dig at the developers because they said that these awakened abilities were supposed to be a cherry on the top, like an extra perk. This seems like an entirely better kit. Reducing, the negative effects, all this extra stuff right here, preventing speed bar. Blastaar Island enemies cannot have their speed and resistance increased except by positive effects. That's kind of like an Emma X, man, passive. Yeah, that's not even the same. That's not the same. That's way, way, way more than a cherry on the top. And, this is going to fuel sales, right? So we have to see how these are offered to the community. Is it going to be through a Scourge, or we're going to be able to buy it inside of the chapter store? Or is this going to be, $35? Spend monies. I don't know. Bye for now.